To me, this is a dog or pass kind of game. I look at all the metrics and all the statistics, and I can't sit back and say, here's where I can attack this spread. Izzo, obviously there's been some stuff in the media about him attacking one of his players in the last game. I think that's completely overblown. Let a coach his player. Let a player respond to a coach. Leave it alone if it doesn't affect you. But, this is another one of those games very similar to Texas Tech and Michigan where I just can't sit back and say, let's go invest your money and say, here's where I think we've got a really profitable angle. This is just awesome basketball, and you have to chalk it up to one of those matchups.
Yeah, this is an awesome. I mean, all these games are great. All number 1, 2, and 3 seeds are pretty much in the Sweet 16 here. So it just, I'm so excited to watch it. Michigan State is the best Big Ten team. The Big Ten was the deepest conference in the tournament with 8 teams in, but that doesn't mean they have the best team per se. I think Michigan State's close, but they're not the best team in the country according to most power ratings. They certainly are pretty dang good at everything. They're not like weak. There isn't nothing glaring weakness, right? Like you can point out for some of the other teams that are in the top. They sustained major injuries to like Kyle Ahrens. He hurt his ankle and he's been out for the tournament. He's a role player, but Josh Langford was a starter and he went out in very early January and they haven't missed a beat. Sparty's 23-9 against the spread as a favorite this year. 23-9, huge moneymaker. Let's look at the matchup. Both teams have massive offenses, right? Shooting over 45% on the road. The biggest discrepancy to me is that Michigan State has a top 8 defense. LSU, their defense only ranks 49th on KenPom, okay? And that's why they don't cover their small spreads the first 2 games, I admit I was trying to fade the Yale thing on LSU that first game. Yale, they couldn't miss from 3 the last minute. They hit 4 threes that screwed up that spread from down to 10-5. That one hurt. But it also goes to show you that that's LSU. They let teams back in the game. They start hot, and then they kind of fade out. They were up by 16 that game in the first half. Coach Wade's suspended for LSU, and Tony Bedford is not exactly a great interim. Tom Izzo, maybe the best NCAA tournament coach in all of college basketball, according to a national consensus. Even more telling to me is that Michigan State, they have the better offense. They rank 4th on KenPom to LSU's 13th. Now, my raw numbers have Michigan State winning 82-74, but everything that I said screams Michigan State here, right? Everything that I said. But the thing that keeps me off this 6.5 bet, the thing that's keeping me off is that LSU performs extremely well as a dog. Extremely well. They're one of the top teams in the nation as a dog. They're 6-1-1 against the spread this year as a dog. That worries me the most. I like Michigan State to win this game, but I do not like the spread at 6.5 points that much here. I'm going to lean Michigan State, the spread, but here's what I'm going to do with Michigan State. I'm probably going to use them in a money line parlay because I really believe that they're going to win this game. Huge coaching discrepancy here. Michigan State's the better all-around team, but I'm thinking this screams money line. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If you're looking for a betting angle on the game, it's money line and add it into a parlay or pass it to me. I'd love to back Michigan State. I have them power lined as like a 4.5 or 5 point favorite. That doesn't make me want to fire on LSU, though. I don't know that there's that much line value. Here's where I think I can piggyback onto your handicap and give you another nugget to look at Michigan State. LSU is ranked 13th in offensive efficiency according to KenPom, but they're 290th in the country in three-point shooting. That's a significant fallback, especially when Michigan State's ranked 34th in the country in three-point defense. Michigan State is ranked 22nd in the country in three-point percentage themselves offensively. LSU is tough in that regard. They're 120th in the country. But if there's an angle here, it's LSU's defense. I think LSU, they have to come into a situation eventually where they just can't keep doing what they're doing. I don't know how their hearts are working after, I think, 6 overtime games in the regular season, and they just somehow keep finding a way to battle and win games. The Izzo factor, I think, weighs heavily into a money line parlay. That's the only way that I could justify to someone to add that into their betting list.
Plus, you take away their coach, Will Wade, and you look at their freshman, Naz Reid, is an absolute beast, possibly freshman of the year. Well, I mean, obviously Zion, right? But, Naz Reid is right up there, top 5 freshmen in the league. And Javonte Smart's a freshman, and there's 2 freshmen there without their coach. I don't like that against Izzo. So glad we have clarity on that one. Let's go to the next one. Auburn versus North Carolina. North Carolina is laying about 5 points here. I saw a couple 4.5s out there, but I think it's mostly 5. They are playing in Kansas City in the Sprint Center. I can go ahead and get started with this one. This game's going to be high scoring, obviously. 164 over under, right? North Carolina has the 8th best offense in the tournament and 11th best defense, according to KenPom. They shoot 46.4 away from home percentage, and they outscore opponents by 12 points on the road. That's why North Carolina's been so dominant. Auburn, on the other hand, coming off a hot performance against Kansas, they jumped the Jayhawks, got up to a 25-point lead at half, but they only won by 15. They're up there, and then Kansas kind of played their way back a little bit, and Kansas plays their fast pace. Auburn shot a crazy 52.5% that game. That's way above their average on the road. Their average on the road is 43.2%. So looking at other road stats, Auburn only outscores their opponents by 1.1 point on the road. They had a really bad lull in their season too. And saying all that, Auburn's the second hottest team. I mean, right behind Oregon, I would think. And they haven't lost a game since February 23rd at Kentucky. I think where the rubber meets the road is we have to look at the actual matchups. Auburn seriously relies on the 3-point shot, and about exactly half of their shots are 3-pointers. Half their shots are literally 3-pointers. They're hitting a lot of them, but when they face teams that can defend a 3, they can be in a bit of trouble. North Carolina, they have the formula to beat this team, especially if Auburn isn't hitting 3s, because they are top in the ACC in rebounding the ball. The Tar Heels are top in rebounding. They also defend the 3 better than Kansas did, allowing only 33% from all teams from 3-point land. Auburn's got the 6th best offense in the league because of their shooting, but they're going to get killed inside by North Carolina's big guys like Nasir Little and Cam Johnson, some big guys down there. UNC ranks 18th in height. Auburn ranks 206th in height. Okay? They better get some rebounds, some long ones if they're going to be missing those 3s. But as long as UNC can stop them a little bit, Roy Williams, you got to give him some credit, knowing Auburn's weakness. I mean, you have to give him some credit here. I think UNC covers. I'm not so sure about this high total of 164, especially if my prediction goes right and Auburn gets shut down. But I can't trust. I can't trust that total, but I think I got UNC winning. And if I had to give you raw numbers, it'd be 88-80. That's my play. I'm going to play North Carolina -5. Any thoughts?
I can't agree with you more here. My power line has North Carolina by 7.5, 8. I love that you've predicted this to be 88-80. I could care less about the total. I think one of the stats that stick out to me is offensive rebounding. North Carolina ranks 16th in the country. Auburn, defensively, 334th in the country, preventing offensive rebounds. Given the height advantage, the fact that North Carolina can run, they can run fast. They are ranked 5th in the country in average possession length, and they're going to get the ball up and down the court. They're going to try to bang it up against the boards. And if they miss their offensive attempts, which are high efficiency attempts to begin with, they're going to get those putbacks. And I love North Carolina here. I think this is another sell high for Auburn. They are certainly hot. You can't deny that. And they had a big, impressive win against Tennessee on March 17 as a 5-point underdog, winning by 20. But they're primed for a letdown here. I think there's line value at 5. North Carolina hosted Duke earlier this year, and they were favored by 4.5. Duke isn't Auburn, and Auburn isn't Duke, but they were also only favored on the road against Clemson earlier in March by 3.5. I like to look at the prior line values in matchups to determine whether or not there's overreaction here. I think 5 is too low, and I can't blame anyone for wanting to bag that.
Yeah, and you got to take Roy Williams over Bruce Pearl. I love Bruce Pearl. I love his intensity, and but I got to tell you, he's a little bit overzealous at times. And Roy Williams, I think you got to give him a little bit of an advantage. I'm not a huge Roy Williams fan. I'm not sure if he's a top 4 or 5 coach. He gets the recruits, right? But I think you got to give him the edge over Bruce Pearl. So glad we agree on that game. Let's move into the big one here. Well, the big name, Virginia Tech versus Duke. Duke laying 7.5. Woo! 7.5 points off that scare against Central Florida. The over-under is about 144.5. Tom, I'm going to let you go first.
Man, if you would have watched, anyone did, but if you saw that last bucket that UCF missed, how did that ball roll around that rim and slide out on that offensive putback? This is just what happens with Duke. When I was on your podcast before Duke was playing North Carolina, and I said, I don't want to make a bet on this game. This has too much drama. I want to sit back and watch this game and enjoy it. It's really hard, in my opinion, to back Duke in many situations against the spread. I'm going to give you a couple reasons why you should maybe hold off if you like Duke here. Virginia Tech is 5-2 the last 7 ATS against Duke, 7-4 the last 11 ATS against Duke. They were 3.5-point underdogs at home this year. They covered 5-point underdogs at home and 11-point underdogs on the road in 2018. Covered all 3. This number, I feel, is too high. I'm not sure that I'm going to back Virginia Tech here. I feel like Duke had their scare. I think Coach K is going to have them ready. This is a storyline game. I have this power line at 4.5-5, so all indications would say fire on Virginia Tech here. I just can't do it, though. For some reason, I can't. I don't know that I want to do anything but perhaps even add Duke into a money line parlay. This is one of those storyline games for me where the tournament tends to look like a soap opera. And I feel like if the writers want it to go a certain way, it's going to end up with a Duke with another victory here. So it's either Duke on a money line in a parlay or pass for me.
I like the way you think because I'm kind of on the same board there. It's pretty scary. That was such a scary game for Duke backers and anyone in the tournament. But the fact that I had to cross Duke off and put Michigan State in the Final Four, I was kind of hoping Duke would lose, even though they were going to screw up my moneyline parlay. It was almost worth it to me to have my bracket, that I talked about win. But we still have a shot at that. But at the same time, you're right. How does that ball not go in even on the tip there? It's almost like the gods are in favor of Krzyzewski and Duke. I don't know. I don't know what any other reason. It's just sheer electricity, momentum, you can call it. I don't know. But what a great game that was. You have an ACC matchup, and it's familiar, just like you said. These teams have met this year in Blacksburg. Duke lost. They lost by 5, but we know that this was without Zion Williamson, right? Looking at this spread, if Duke lost by 5 points at Virginia Tech, wouldn't that mean that Zion is worth 8.5 points? because the spread's 7.5 here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just one way of looking at it, right? We don't obviously take much bigger samples than that, but